So Gen Z tends to hate men for being, well, men. And in this story, this Gen Z girl goes way too far. Buckle up, as this story is absolutely crazy. And you know what? Let's just jump right into it.
And we're crying, crying, crying like a wounded animal.
So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Aiden. So anyways, in Aiden's class, there wasn't just one Gen Z girl, but there was an entire group of Gen Z girls. So there was one kind of like cult leader Gen Z girl who we're going to call the Gen Z girls. And then, but just be aware that she also, there's a bunch of them, right? It's not just one, there's a bunch. And when I say Gen Z, I don't necessarily mean to say everyone in that generation because, guys, spoiler, I'm in the Gen Z generation. I know a lot of you guys are too. However, you've definitely seen on TikTok and Twitter some people that definitely fall under the characteristic of, oh man, that's another Gen Z kid, right? So anyways, this Gen Z girl, right, she starts an anti-ugly men cult. Dude, I'm not even kidding you right now. So you know how like a lot of Gen Z people will be like, oh, men deserve nothing. They're the worst. Which like, look, I like at the end of the day, I'm against any form of like generalizing people by something that they can't control at the end of the day, dude. And that includes if you're a man or a woman. I definitely would be against if a bunch of Gen Z guys made a cult of like anti-ugly women. Like, bro, that would obviously be pretty terrible too. But sometimes I feel like that would not be allowed, but something like this would be. So anyways, right, the Gen Z girl makes a cult, the anti-ugly men cult. And the thing is, right, she started, like, you might be thinking, okay, well, if they have a little side group, then, like, what's the big deal? Sure, that's pretty offensive, but if they just keep it to themselves, like, who even knows? So the thing is, right, the subscriber Aiden wouldn't have even known about this, right? Would not have even known about this until the Gen Z girl and her friends one day were sitting in class, and it was the Gen Z, I'm going to call it the Gen Z cult, or I'm going to call it the Gen Z group because I don't know if the word cult's going to get me, like, yeeted by YouTube or something. But anyways, the Gen Z group were all sitting together one day. And this is when Aiden didn't even know about it. So Aiden was like kind of bored in class because they were sitting at like tables or whatever. And he kind of like starts to listen in on their conversation. And sure, yeah, it's a little sketchy to listen in on people's conversations sometimes. But bro, I'm not going to lie. I've been bored enough and done that before in the past too. But anyways, right, so sure enough, he's listening in. And he starts to hear them talk about, okay, like, who is, like, on the ugly men list that we hate and who is not. And he's like, dude, what? So he kind of, like, listens in a little bit. And what he hears completely shocks him. So basically what he hears is he hears these girls talking about, they've actually called themselves the Gen Z group, right? They literally call themselves that. And they're talking about how they are starting a crusade against quote-unquote ugly men because they believe ugly men deserve nothing. Their rationale is ugly men or men in general are already terrible and deserve nothing, and like men are the worst. But they can at least be eye candy for us women, right? At the very end, like at the very, very minimum, they can at least be eye candy for us. By the way, like and subscribe, or you are just as bad as the Gen Z group right now. But anyways, yeah, and they go on saying that, like, men are the worst, and at a minimum, they can at least be, fun for them to look at. And Aiden's sitting there like, oh my God, what the frick, bro? Like, what is going on right now? Like, this is genuinely insane. So they keep going on about this, and that's when they say Operation Nightfall, or whatever. They give it some, like, corny name or something. Operation Black Eagle, Operation Night Squid, some kind of like weird combination of words. We'll just call it Operation Gen Z, even though that's definitely not what they called it. They're like, Operation Gen Z commences after school. The results will be seen tomorrow. So Aiden's like, bro, what is this? Because they all talk about like some operation, right? That's like so like, I don't know, sketchy or whatever. So Aiden's a little weirded out. He's like, okay, well, that's a little bit intimidating. Them saying that Operation Gen Z is going to, like, happen tonight and the consequences will be seen tomorrow. Like, bro, I'm a little sketched out right now, but whatever, dude. So sure enough, the next day comes around, and honestly, Aiden at this point has kind of forgotten about the whole Gen Z group or whatever, because he's like, okay, yeah, those girls were pretty crazy with what they were saying, but I don't know, maybe that's just like what girl talk is. guys, that is not what girl talk is. Or actually, maybe they all have a secret vendetta against guys and they only hate the ugly ones. I don't know, bro. So sure enough, the next day it comes around and Aiden walks into school, and that's when he sees 3 pieces of paper on 3 different guys' lockers. So basically, when you walk into Aiden's school, like it's like the open locker section or that type of situation, right? So in some schools, you guys have private lockers, like in different, like you have private locker rooms, and that's where you have guys' lockers and girls' lockers. And you really can't be going into each other's locker rooms because not only do you keep your book bag there, but you also might be changing for sports in there. But there's also schools where it's like the lockers are all down the hallway, and this school was like that. So on 3 random lockers, and they weren't random, but it seemed to be random at first. On 3 lockers, there was a piece of paper taped onto it saying, "Ugly men deserve nothing." And on the back of it said, like, Gen Z girl or Gen Z cult deems you as like deserving nothing. Dude, it was like crazy like that. Like it literally said, they literally went onto like after school, put pieces of paper on 3 guys' lockers, deeming them as ugly, at least according to the Gen Z group saying so, right? So at this point, Aiden knew something that all the guys in his school didn't. So the guys who got it took like the piece of paper off. They're like, bro, what is this? They kind of probably thought that like another guy was like trolling them or something, which, I mean, that happens a little bit. I don't know if the guys watching this ever pull pranks on the other guys in school. I know like I wasn't the one pulling a lot of pranks, but I definitely saw a lot of pranks go down. I might have aided in a few, but I can't incriminate myself on camera, dude. So anyways, yeah, the guys were looking at this, thought nothing of it, and kind of just like crumpled it up and like threw it away or something. But Aiden turns to his friend, and his friend's like, dude, that's super weird. Did you see that? And Aiden's like, bro, I didn't just see that. I think I know what's going on here. So basically, right, Aiden explains everything that he overheard the day before, and his friend's like, that's insane. So they don't really think that much of it, but, you know, they tell some people, and word spreads a little bit about this like Gen Z girl cult, right? Or group, I should say. YouTube, don't get mad at me, please, I beg. But anyways, the next day happens, as it normally does. But this was not a normal day once again. So basically, at this point, right, you know, they walk into school, Aiden and all of his friends, and instead of there being 1 or 2 notes, instead of there being nothing on the lockers, and instead of there being maybe 1 note taped on a locker or a couple notes, dude, it was like a sprinkling of notes all across the lockers. Must have been that Operation Gen Z was a precursor to Operation Massive Gen Z Explosion Bomb. Like, I don't know. Like, this was like the biggest, like, this was like 10x what was there before. So many pieces of paper had been taped onto all these guys' lockers, basically just straight up calling them ugly. So, like, most of the guys, like, didn't care. However, the staff administration must have like walked through at one point and saw some of the notes, and like one of the staff administrators or teachers grabbed one of the notes and was like, what's the meaning of this? And he turns to the guy of the locker that was put on. They're like, did you put this on? And the guy looks at the at the teacher and is like, you really think I'd put a piece of paper on my locker saying I'm ugly, signed the Gen Z group? Like, what? Like, dude, what does that even mean? And the teacher's like, I don't know, kids do weird stuff, I'm not hip with it. Like, you just need to tell me if you did this. And the guy's like, bro, why would I self-report? Like, why would I say I'm ugly, bro? like, what? So the teacher's like, fine, okay, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, at this point, half the school not half the school, but a ton of kids got tagged with these things. Word is spreading really quickly, and Aiden is basically spreading super quickly what he heard. So Aiden knows the girls that said this stuff, and he kind of said the names, right? So word got around pretty quickly. And apparently, right, this was like the precursor, like this was the precursor to like the official launch of the official Gen Z group club. Like, I'm not even kidding you. This was a marketing stunt. This was a publicity stunt for like the Gen Z group. This is like the craziest thing I've ever heard, right? By the way, you can submit your own stories like these have been submitted to me over on my Instagram through my DMs or on my Twitter through my DMs. DMs are open on both. I will probably not respond to your DM, even if I read it and use it for a story, so be aware of that. Anyways, though, so yeah, the Gen Z girl kind of in like the group of the Gen Z group, right? They take responsibility for what happened. They say, yes, this is us. we want to let you know that tomorrow during third free period and fourth free period, we will be in room whatever. There was like a room where people would hang out in, and we will be accepting new members. Spread the word. So yeah, this was like the craziest day in school ever because like this stuff never happens to Aiden, right? So at this point, the administrators are trying to figure out what's going on. A third of the boys at the school got tagged as ugly, right? And word is spreading like wildfire that this group of girls are starting a group that also only girls are allowed, obviously. But they will, which will basically like, I don't even know what the group does. To this day, Aiden still has no idea what the group would do besides call guys ugly, which like, bro, we don't need a group for that, dude. We got the internet to do that. So yeah, word started to spread really quickly. Aiden was like spreading, because like at this point, Aiden didn't even need to spread the word anymore because the girls, like the group of girls, like they took responsibility. Well, they didn't take responsibility. They said that this was us. And if you want to join our group tomorrow at third and fourth period, right? So little did they know that, this was not Aiden, but this was one of Aiden's friendly. He at least knew the story after the fact. We're going to call this kid Ben. So there's another kid in this story, right? We're going to call him Ben. Friendly with Aiden, friendly enough to tell him about this after this all went down, but not like super close. So anyways, Ben was one of the kids who got, tagged or whatever. And he was pretty upset about this. So Ben went to the principals and was like, yo, what is this? Like, what's the meaning of this? And they explained to him, hey, Ben, like, we know about this. We don't totally know, like, who. We've heard some stuff, but we really want to get to the bottom of this as well. You're not the only one affected, as you probably see this morning. And Ben's like, okay, well, can I help in any way? So the principal's like, okay, well, we've actually been looking for someone to assist in a bit of a sting type operation. And they're like, hey, Ben, do you have any friends that are girls that you're really close with? And Ben thinks for a second. He's like, actually, I do. So we're going to call this girl Ava. So many characters. I will guarantee you I will mix up the names. And comment paper down below. That'll be the secret word, as pieces of paper were taped on people's lockers. That's why I'm saying it. Also, I have a Spotify linked in the description. Please go follow it or listen to it if you'd like. And if you're listening on Spotify right now, please make sure to rate 5 stars. It does help me out. Anyways, so Ben's friend Ava, right, is called into the principal's office. And Ava's like totally freaking out because she's like very, I don't know, likes doing well, doesn't like getting in trouble. So she's like, what I do. And they're like, chill out, like you're good. We want to know if you can help us. So the principal, Ben, and like another administrator explained to her that, first of all, they asked, do you know who's doing this? And she's like, yeah, I know the group of girls or whatever. And it's like, yeah, they're the whatever. And they said, would you be willing to go into like join their group and like go into one of their meetings and like record that stuff? And she's like, I don't know. Like, that's a pretty big ask. And they're like, look, we can't say that we'll give you like immunity or like a pass if you mess up once, but we are saying we'll give you immunity / a pass. So basically the school was saying, if you like screw up once, we'll like look the other way. So it's like a get out of jail free card. Obviously with some, she can't like set the school on fire like a spoiled kid might, but so at this point Ava's like, okay, whatever. I don't like these girls anyways. They figure out I'm the rat, who cares? So yeah, the next day, sure enough, during third and fourth period, the group of Gen Z girls is just kind of sitting in their corner. So Ben's friend Ava, right, goes over and says, I want to join your group. And they're like, okay, sure, cool, whatever. They don't have any vetting process. They don't have anything. They say, okay, Ava, can you meet for like 10 minutes after school? Ava usually walked home, so she's like, yeah, sure. End of school. Ava walks over to the place that they're meeting. Actually, a lot of girls showed up. So it wasn't just only the Gen Z girls, but it was a lot of other ones too who joined the I Hate Ugly Men group, which is just so demeaning and ridiculous. But that's apparently what they joined, right? So they start talking about like their plans. They talk about like their next wave of tagging. Basically, they were going to have another spree of like tagging people's lockers. And they said, we're going to like have our next wave tomorrow after school. Everyone needs to wait 30 minutes because that's when the whole staff clears out or whatever after the bell rings. And then we go in before cleaning crew comes and they lock up the place. So basically, someone in the Gen Z group must have known that there's like a scheduling where the bell rings and after 30 minutes, all the staff clear out. However, they leave the place unlocked because the cleaning crew come 30 minutes after, they clean, and then they lock up for good. So yeah, Ava's like, here's this, and she's like, okay, cool. The next day comes around, she goes immediately to the principal's office and explains, okay, if you want to catch them in the act, this is what they're going to do, and this is when they're going to do it. So now Ava's no longer part of the scene or whatever. She's done her part, she's got her immunity card, and she's out of it. Aiden doesn't know any of this, right? And Ben only tells Aiden about this after the fact because they happen to get together and they talk about it, right? So what happens is, Aiden's like walking around and, he's kind of talking to his friends like, dude, I heard a lot of people join the Gen Z cult or the Gen Z group yesterday. This is kind of crazy. And they're like, yeah, apparently it's getting pretty popular. It's gaining a lot of steam. Like, this is actually kind of bad. Like, do you think we're going to be next? Because they were like, Aiden and his friends were pretty like, they didn't want to be tagged as like the ugly guys. Because you don't want to be tagged like that, bro. Like, that's demeaning. That's annoying. Like, you don't want to have that on your locker the next day. But little did they know that this was not going to be an issue for them. Because the school had this, they had a plan. Basically, right, so Aiden goes home, everyone goes home, the bell rings. And instead of the faculty, or not all the faculty, most of the faculty go home. But the principal and 3 other staff members, right, they know about what's going to happen 30 minutes after the bell rings, whatever. So they stay. They stay hidden. They stay in the parking lot. And they stay in the parking lot, and they're kind of looking out. And that's when they see a group of girls walk back into the school. So they give them like a minute or two so that the girls can start placing the notes so that they can catch them in the act. Because worst case scenario, there's a chance if they catch them too early, it's like, oh, we all just came, like I forgot my stuff and my friends came with me. Worst case scenario, I mean, they could probably say, let me see your backpack and it sees all the notes or whatever. But so sure enough, give it a couple minutes and then the principal and the 4 faculty members storm into the building. Sure enough, they catch the girls like putting the notes on the guys, like whatever. And the principal comes in and is like, I need all of you guys to come with me right now, whatever. Some of the girls try and run away or whatever. But the principal knows them by name. He knows who was there. So some of them run away, some of them stay. And the ones that stay confirm the ones that ran away, right? Because they're going to be, they want the least punishment possible. So I get it, whatever. Snitched on your group, but whatever. It's not a good group anyways. So yeah, principal confiscates all the notes, kind of looks at like who is being put on. And so every single person, not every single person in the Gen Z group, because one thing I will say is there was more people who joined the group than people who showed up to do the tagging, right? The principal kind of just let the people who didn't show up go on their own or whatever, but every single person who went into school to put a note on some poor random guy's locker, calling him ugly, degrading him, every single person got suspended for 1 day, not a week, not anything too crazy, 1 day, and had to also, their parents were told, and finally, they had to all come together and write a collective apology letter that was going to be sent out from the principal to the email of every parent of a guy who goes there. So, the next day comes around and Aiden kind of braced for, a offensive letter on his locker, and he comes back and there's not a single one. So right away he thinks, oh, they must have not done anything last night because they didn't tag lockers every single night. But pretty soon Aiden starts to learn that, no, that's in fact not the case. Because word starts to spread pretty quickly that a large group of girls are missing today. And it turns out word spreads even faster that they got suspended and that there's a sting operation and that the principal and the other people caught them in the act. And then obviously when Aiden goes home that day, he gets a message from his mom being like, hey, what's going on at school? I just got an email of an apology from some girls to all the guys or something like that. So Aiden explains everything that he heard. His mom's like, wow, I know I was childish when I was in, 8th grade or whatever, but dang, that's crazy, dude. So yeah, eventually Aiden isn't really that close with Ben, but they happen to be chilling at the same lunch table literally 2 weeks after. And Aiden is talking about dang, that's so crazy with the Gen Z girl group or whatever, how they got busted. After the fact, the Gen Z group, that entire group dismantled. No one wanted to be associated with it because they knew that they would get in trouble if they did. And it just wasn't popular anymore. Shouldn't have been popular in the first place. It shouldn't have happened in the first place, but that's in the past. I can't control that. However, Aiden was talking with his friends and also Ben at the table about how crazy it was. And Ben's like, bro, you don't know the craziest part. Ben would tell Aiden the story about his friend Ava and how it actually happened. And Yeah, so moral of the story is don't do that, guys.